everyone, Mr. Pat here for another very exciting lesson today. So everyone, please gather up, put in your eco spaces thinking cap, because we are ready to dive right in today. For today's activity, we're going to be doing a really fun acid rain activity. And this is where we're going to test out if acid rain can really harm the plants that we eat. And we're going to be doing this by making our own newspaper planters out of newspaper. We're going to be planting some pumpkin seeds. We're also going to be making our own safe-to-use acid rain with white vinegar. So we got a lot planned today, so everyone please be ready for a very hands-on, very scientific, and a very fun experiment today. To begin, can anyone explain what acid rain is? Now everyone take your time because even I had trouble with this one. So take a few moments and think, what is acid rain? All right, so hopefully everyone really thought about it. So acid rain is when chemicals such as sulfur dioxide or nitrous oxides are released into the air, and they rise super high until they get trapped into the clouds. And in these clouds, that's where they mix with water, and then they form acids. And when this cloud gets super full and ready to burst, that's when all the acid rain or acid snow starts falling to the earth. And that's what acid rain is. So everyone might be thinking, where do all these chemicals even come from? And that is an amazing question. All these chemicals come from the burning of fossil fuels, from things like burning gas or burning coal to generate electricity. We also see this from our exhaust pipes in our cars, in our trucks. And maybe when you're in the backseat of your mom or dad's car and you're driving on the highway, you might see all these factories with big clouds of smoke coming out of them. Definitely not great for the environment or the atmosphere. And due to all the crazy weather patterns we're all learning right now, it can move acid rain all over the world. So just because it started in New Jersey, doesn't mean it's gonna stay here, and some wind could blow it all the way to California. Now, isn't that crazy? So why is it called acid rain? Well, it's because acid rain usually has a pH of around 4. Now, the whole pH scale runs from 0 to 14. Anything from 0 to 6 will be considered acidic. Anything from 8 to 14 will be considered basic. Anything right in the middle, measuring at 7, will be considered neutral. Thus, why we call it acid rain, because it's measuring at a pH of 4 in the acidic range. Now everyone, with a name like acid rain, we automatically know that this is not going to be good for anything at all. Humans like us, we're able to run away or get away from all these harmful chemicals that fall on us. I mean, we could sidestep, we could run and duck for cover, but can anyone name one thing that can't just go, get up, and take a shower when all these harmful chemicals like acid rain falls on them? I'll think really hard about this. What is one thing that cannot just get up and move like humans can? So hopefully everyone says something like produce or veggies or fruits or flowers, because all those answers would be right. Acid rain has a super negative effect on all our plants and the produce that we love to eat and smell, and we do not want that. First of all, acid rain can cause stunted growth. Now, we hate that. We want all our plants and produce to grow as big and just flourish. Number 2, acid rain also damages the plant's roots. Now, those are super important in the development of all our plants, so we do not want that either. And lastly, and the worst of all, acid rain can even kill our plants. Now, I know I would be devastated if I was growing grapes and a bunch of acid rain just wiped that all out. So on 3, let's give acid rain a taste of our own medicine and yell boo acid rain. So 1, 2, 3, boo acid rain. And on top of all that madness that acid rain has on our plants and produce, they have the same effect on our soil. It's gonna kill all the nutrients in the soil. It's gonna kill all the microorganisms that make up those nutrients in the soil. And it's also gonna cause any plant to just look very unhealthy. All the plants that do survive acid rain will look very, like I said, unhealthy, weak, vulnerable. So always remember, acid rain is definitely never going to be good for our plants. So let's start talking about today's experiment. We'll be testing out to see if acid rain can really harm the plants we eat in real time. And we'll be doing so by planting our very own pumpkin seeds. And we'll be putting all these seeds in our very own homemade newspaper planters. I'll show everyone that process later. Super quick and super fun. And for the main part of this experiment, we'll be making our own acid rain. Now to do so in a safe manner, I have here some distilled white vinegar. So not only is this cheap and you can find it at most your grocery stores, it's much safer to use. It's not gonna burn us, it's not gonna harm us like acid rain. So we'll be using that for today's experiment. Now let's get started. We're gonna go outside to fill some potting bags with some soil. Hey everyone, now we're outside at Greater Newark Conservancy. So happy to be here, amazing area. So right now we're gonna be adding potting soil to each and every single one of these bags. We wanna make sure we fill them up and they all have roughly the same amount. So I'm about to make 15 and see how quickly I can do it. All right, everyone, we are back inside. We got all these potting bags, and I labeled 5 of them pH 4, 5 of them pH 2, and then the last 5 tap water. Now that'll be important for later, but for now, let's start getting to the next step, which is making these super cool newspaper planters. Very simple. All I used was 1 sheet of newspaper, any type of cup, glass, plastic, plastic safer, but any cup that's a flat, anything with a slant is gonna make it a little harder, but still can do it. And that's all you really need to make these planters. Now I already made a few, but I have to make 15 total to fill up all these bags. So I'm gonna show everyone how I do it, and then hopefully everyone will be a professional at making any type of newspaper planter. Woo! All right, so this is how I make these newspaper planters. So you're gonna take your newspaper and you're gonna fold it hot dog style. So just like this. Doesn't have to be perfectly even, but trying your best. And then at this point, this is where you're gonna take your cup. So I'll take this cup, and you wanna make sure the hollow inside is gonna be where all that excess newspaper is gonna be, and we'll show you why. So you get about here, and then essentially you just start rolling. And once you roll it all the way around, this is the hollow side, you're gonna start going like that. Essentially just creating that sealed tight bottom. You wanna push it in, and then at this point, you go like this, just to get it out, shake it a bit, be careful, and then the final product should be, push that down, and look at that. Perfect newspaper planter. So I'm gonna make about 14 more, and then we'll be on to the next step. All right, so that actually took me so much longer than expected, but we got 15 of these really, really nice newspaper planters. So now we're into the next step, which everyone might have a lot of fun with, because this is where we pretend we were all top dog chemists. And we're gonna make our own acid rain with that white vinegar I showed everyone. So you know what that means, right? Ooh. You gotta dress like a chemist to feel like a chemist. So let's dive right into step 2 and have some fun. So right here I have 3 2-liter bottles of water. All tap, so it's all neutral. I made sure that I cleaned out all the bottles, that I dried them out, and then I made sure there was absolutely no contamination in them to mess with our experiment. And then I filled them back up with the water like I said. And now the next step is to adding this vinegar solution to make it more acidic. Now I labeled them all just so I won't get mixed up. So I labeled this one tap water. I'm not going to add any type of vinegar to this solution. It's just going to be straight tap water at a neutral rating. This one I labeled pH 4. This is where I'll be adding about 40 milliliters of solution to this bottle. It'll make it slightly more acidic than the tap water. And then this one, I labeled it pH 2. This will be the most acidic solution we have, and I'll be adding about 140 milliliters of vinegar to this solution. Now, I don't have any access to scientific beakers, and I know most people at home do not as well. So how will I be adding exact measurements of this white vinegar to all these bottles? That's a really good question, and I got the answer right here. So, instead of using those really cool and maybe expensive scientific beakers, most people will have measuring spoons. Now, I know measurement conversions are a really, really cool thing, because with that, I'm able to tell that with 1 tablespoon, that equals 15 milliliters, and 1 teaspoon equals 5 milliliters. So that's 20, and if I do that twice, that's 40 milliliters. And then over here with the bigger ones, for 140 milliliters, I have a half cup. Now that equals 120 milliliters. So if you add this and the other 20, that's 140. So that's how I did this experiment without any type of scientific beakers. So if there's a will, there's a way. Alright, so we have everything filled. The bottles have the appropriate amount of vinegar in them. We also have our potted bags here and our newspaper planters. And most importantly, everything is labeled. 222, 444, tap, tap, tap. Always label, because otherwise at some point you're gonna forget, you're gonna mess up your experiment, and no one wants that. So always label. Now, for this experiment, we'll be using our acid rating, putting it in each of our potted bags of soil. I'll be doing that with this 1 tablespoon. So 1 tablespoon equals 15 milliliters, like I mentioned before. And for each of these bags, we'll be putting in 30 milliliters of vinegar solutions into each of them. So that's basically just using this twice. So I'll show everyone with the pH 4. Now make sure to be careful. You don't want to spill, you don't want to rush. I'm a professional, so I can do this pretty quick. Look at this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. All done with pH 4 potted bags. So now I'm gonna finish it off with the tap water and the pH 2, and we'll meet back for the next step. All right, I finished up all that process. Now we're gonna take all these potted bags of soil and our newspaper planters. We're gonna go outside into the garden and start planting these pumpkin seeds. So let's head on out. All right, we are back outside at Greater Newark Conservancy, and I just love the smell of being outdoors. And I'm very excited for this next part, because I love gardening and planting seeds and all of that. That's what we're gonna be doing right now. Now with every single one of our potted bags of soil, we're gonna be transferring them to our newspaper planters. Pretty easy. Take your bag, open it up, and just dump it right in there just like that. Could get a little messy, but that's all right. And the final product, a planter. So I'll finish the rest of these up right now. All right, so I have all our newspaper planters filled up with the appropriate soil that we labeled. And right now we're gonna plant these super cool pumpkin seeds. They are bigger than most seeds. So how to plant them? Essentially, we're gonna be using just our fingers. Now, basically to the first knuckle, I'm gonna stick a finger, about 2 holes in each of these planters, and basically go all the way down to just that first knuckle, and you should be fine. That should be about 1 inch. And then once you create those holes, you stick your pumpkin seed right in there, cover it lightly with soil, and then we're good to go. Make sure to keep everything in their specific group, and then we're gonna have all of these laid out in the sun, getting the right amount of sunlight, and they're all gonna be the same area, so there's gonna be absolutely no difference between the treatment they all get besides the acid rain water we have for them. And then after that, it's just a waiting game. We're gonna wait a few weeks to see how all our plants and roots and stems all develop. Hopefully we will actually see if acid rain can actually harm the plants we eat. And spoiler, they do. So be on the lookout for super cool updates on all our pumpkin plants. All right, everyone, we are done with today's experiment. I hope everyone has as much fun as I did, and I hope everyone learned a lot as well. Because we did talk about a lot. I mean, we talked about acid rain, we talked about soil, we talked about how we can make our own newspaper planters with just one sheet of paper. I mean, we talked about a lot. So I hope everyone can take that home and tell their friends and tell their parents. But now, let's talk about what we're gonna do after this experiment. The most important thing is watering. We must water our plants. That's what they need to survive, just like humans. So, in order to do that, because I know everyone has a super busy life with school, classes, family, we might not always think that we have to water our plants. So that's why we have this watering schedule. It's pretty simple, and it's split up into 3 different categories for the tap water, the pH 2, and the pH 4, so we don't ever get mixed up. And all it really asks for is the date that you water it and the student's name who's watering it, just so we have a consistent basis. Now you want to water all these plants when they feel dry in the first inch. So, just like when we used our hand to make the hole in the soil, we're going to be doing the same thing to test. When you stick your finger in there about an inch in and it feels dry, you definitely want to water it with a specific solution that it's labeled on. That's why we labeled it, because in a few weeks we could forget. Now, we will also be measuring the height. Now that's important too, because we want real data. We're going to be measuring about every 2 weeks, and that'll give us a really cool graph by the end of this whole growing season. And then we'll see, maybe the tap water's been growing consistently. We might also see that a certain plant with acid rain pH 2 or pH 4 is being stunted at some point, which we talked about is a negative effect of acid rain. So hopefully I'll be providing updates in the coming weeks, and we will all be able to see with our own eyes the actual effects acid rain had on our plants. So once again, thank you everyone for coming out to this class. I had so much fun, and I'm very excited for next week's lesson on unbelievable energy seed balls.